Welcome to the CEN show, where we present the voice of the community. The Community Education Network.com is a platform to aid the effort of self and collective improvement. On Tuesday, May 25th, 8 days from now, historian Joe Hembrick and Professor Amin Ra will host their first podcast show called Conscious Corner. We are very excited and anticipating learning tons of great information. Professor Amin Ra, would you like to say anything about the show that's coming up?
Uh, yeah, I just hope that you tune in. It's going to be a lively discussion, and I hope that we'll definitely be focusing on the challenges of mental health. I have a mental health mental challenging grandson, and his mother, Dr. Cherie Montgomery, a graduate of SC, she's writing a book on mental health, and so yeah, we're gonna have that as a part of the show eventually.
Yeah. Okay, we're looking forward to it. Okay, I'm your host, Rasaki Maskani. Tonight's topic is mental health. Tonight's guest is Miss JW. Miss JW is back for the second time to share with us and to participate with the panel to discuss aspects of mental health. I want to share with everyone a blended definition for the phrase mental health. The website will soon feature a community dictionary where it would provide definitions created by a collective community effort. Ms. JW, along with educators, students, and community members, shared their personal definition for mental health with me, and I blended them to one definition. Here it is: the process of thinking that derives individual actions and perceptions, which allows the person to function in society. Ms. JW, how are you this evening? Please share your definition of mental health and tell us some things about yourself.
I'm doing great. Thank you. Yeah, so my working definition, is the study and assessment of brain and socio-emotional health that includes the physiological and sociological impact on mental health through the influence of internal, for example, self-identity, relationships, and external factors such as systemic disparities and environmental concerns. Yeah, so that is my working definition, and even reading it now, I feel like I see it evolving as I continue on my journey of mental health. And yeah, just a little bit about myself. I'm an educator, as well as I like to call myself a well-being curator. But the services I can provide through that is teaching yoga and meditation. And I got into, I guess, taking care of my mental health and self-care my first year of teaching, which was a very intense and stressful year. And I was also in my early to mid 20s, which I hear is like during those like 20s and all the way to 30s is when a lot of women go through different changes within our bodies and our minds, and we face a lot of challenges. It's years where a lot of women get diagnosed with different just mental disorders and personality disorders. And so, with that, all that being said, like that was the year I started to not only like revisit some of my traumas, but also experience like my brain and my mind changing. And it was also my first year of teaching in a really high intense, high stakes charter school. And so all that pushed me into a crazy place in my life where I sought out therapy and also started my practice of yoga. And so that's how I think that's where the beginnings of this definition started. And yeah, I'm excited to be here and explore and to listen, to play a listening ear to how others experience this word as well.
Okay, well, good. Appreciate you being here. Okay, I want to go to the panel. And we're going to start. I'm going to pose this to everybody on the panel. What would you like to contribute to the meaning of mental health? I'm going to start with Dr. Terry Strong.
I think I can contribute from a spiritual aspect. In my opinion, mental health is the mental, emotional, psychological, and spiritual well-being of an individual. In other words, all of it works together spiritually in order to have stability within.
Okay. Now, you're the second person out of the 14 people that spoke about spirituality. There was one other person, a good buddy of mine that also wrote a book, and he spoke about spirituality as it relates to mental health. So that's interesting. And you are a pastor, correct?
Correct.
Yes, okay. So the spirit has something to do with mental stability. Can you say that?
Absolutely. Because we are spirits having a natural experience in this life. We all oftentimes we focus on the well-being of the body without realizing that the spirit has to be just as healthy, just as fed, just as nurtured as the physical body, our spiritual being.
Okay. All right. Brother Doctor?
Yeah.
So would you like to kind of touch on a definition for mental health?
Kind of similar with Dr. Strong said, but for me, it's just basically the cognitive, man, the day-to-day things you have to do, man. I mean, from the day you wake up, you facing the mental challenge. You face a mental challenge, 24/7, man. Every minute of the day, you face a mental challenge in this world. Like you said, spiritually, that's one part you can help with it, but the cognitive, behavioral, emotional well-being, man. It's all about the day-to-day living, man, and how you live it.
Okay. Professor Amin Ra?
Yeah, well, mental health covers a lot. It's so many different forms, and the fact that the diagnosis and the prognosis there's so many. There's a difference from a person having a psychological problem and a person having a psychiatric problem. There's sometimes people that just have psychological, needing counseling and other form of therapy that sometimes will help. And then there's psychiatric that sometimes require medical. And sometimes they used to do lobotomies and surgery on people with mental issues and take out parts of their brains and things. And so, this is made, and this is called Mental Awareness Month. And there's about 44 million adults, according to some research, and about 17 million young people, that are suffering from mental illness annually. And so when you look at bipolar, autism, schizophrenic, depressions, aspects of just degrees of mental illness. Then you look at causes. Some is caused by drug abuse, some is caused by just physical abuse or mental abuse by parents, some by whatever home setting they're in. Some is caused by some traumatic experience or loss of a loved one that causes deep depression. And sometimes, there are people that hear voices. And so it's a very complex issue. And there's no one solution. And what's challenging about mental health is any person can snap. There's a book out about snapping, where a person you never thought would just pick up a gun and start shooting, hurt themselves, commit suicide, and you swear that person had so much to live for. And sometimes people internalize their issues. We used to, it's just a complex issue, and it's good to have as many people as we can trying to deal with the various issues. You got celebrities that's trying to talking about their personal experience with depression and bipolar or some aspect of an addiction or some depression that they have. You got sports people that, because they didn't be successful, that go into alcoholism, and all these are diseases that are associated with some form of many times, not all, but some with mental challenges. Oppression has a lot to do with the attitudes of people, cultural and intellectual oppression, whereas people force you to be somebody you're not, or to pretend to be. That's a mental disorder for ethnic groups to think they're white, or to think that white is better than them as a human being. We are all divinely chosen to be who we are, and whatever cultural apparatus we grew up in, and for people to take it from you and then tell you that your culture is a heathen or bad, so it's a law that you got to be like me, or you can't function. And then some people run into problems trying to fit in, and their nature just don't let them. It's a lot to mental illness, and a lot more research has to be done. You look at the various psychiatric drugs that's out there to help people, the various aspects of therapeutic attempts, from getting them involved in physical activity or some other form of activity to try to take away or to soothe their mental challenges. And then this country does not, well, at least in California, when Ronald Reagan was governor, he cut out the mental health institutions. And I remember in 1965, right after the Watts Rebellion, we had mental institutions in Watts and in downtown in central Los Angeles, central Los Angeles. A brother named Hiawatha was, I forget his last name. He's had a mental health center, and the Watts Health Foundation, and Al Kaiser, and some of your HMOs, are offering mental services and things of this nature, but it's a very serious, complex problem. People used to hide their kids or hide their adults who had mental problems when company come over because they was embarrassed. You know, they used to say he's slow, or he ain't all there. You know, there was a lot of demonization of the mental health. And to really illustrate the deepness of mental illness is the homelessness. A certain fraction of them are suffering from mental illness. And they say that the #1 mental institution of today is the county jails, where they lock up people and who have just mental problems. That's why there's a move to reform the police department to have more social service and mental service people out there. So it's a complex issue, and I really want to thank Jack. Is that Jacqueline?
Miss JW.
Yeah, Miss JW for taking on this role. It's a very nomadic and very challenging role, but I think she knows how complex it is.
Okay. All right. So here's the second question, and we're gonna start with Miss JW. How does racism affect the state of mental health as it relates to the behavior of all people?
Yeah, it's a really heavy question. But it's something I think about often. I think because I see how I think race and culture, like those words, shouldn't be interchangeable, but like oftentimes they are. And I say this because I come from like a Korean immigrant background where, you know, going to therapy and getting help is not is like a sign of weakness. And um and so especially for, you know, my parents who have experienced a lot of trauma growing up in war, and my dad also, and having lost their parents at a very young age, um and just the other, you know, my dad was also a Korean refugee, and his dad or my grandpa was a political prisoner, and so there's just like a lot of unresolved in very intense heavy experiences that they carried when they came to America. And then when they came to America, it's like even more because, you know, they were Korean American or they were Korean and very new to the racial tensions that already existed in the States. And they came during the 80s. So, you know, I'm glad you mentioned the 92 riots, because that was another point of like realization of, man, we don't belong here. And so, and that was another point where there was more just, I guess, like experiences that they held in. And so you know, that being said, it's like there's already things that for me, I'm like always trying to encourage my parents to, if they don't want to go to therapy, just to find ways to take care of themselves and to connect with their emotions, like why they feel a certain way. And to me, it's like, yeah, it's about spiritual well-being, but it's also about their physical well-being in the way that like stress deteriorates their body. And yeah, I feel like there's a huge like cultural misunderstanding of what therapy is, and that it is a sign of weakness. And if you do go to therapy, then you have like mental problems that you need to hide. And also like there's this like assumption that life is meant to be unfair and is meant to be hard, but you're just supposed to deal with it. and just like hold your breath and move on. And, you know, I admire my parents' resilience for going through what they went through. But I also, you know, I also feel like, and I also in many ways feel really privileged that I can be in a place where I could say things like, well, go to therapy, you know, because they didn't have the option back then to go to therapy when they're in survival mode. But that's still, I still, that doesn't negate the importance of like unpacking and healing through traumas that were experienced either by war or through racism. And it just leaves a lot of unresolved emotions that in return create a lot of body ailments like high blood pressure, like you're more prone to get strokes, your eating patterns and its connection to diabetes. And I see all that within my parents and their generation. And yeah, I think that directly connects in many ways to racism, because I think a lot of our communities of color have these very, very intense experiences from external powers, whether it be, again, like through war and capitalism and globalization, or through directly in America, just overt racism. And these powers create experiences that we all internalize, and we don't always get a chance to express out. And when they don't get expressed out, that's when we see the body hold on, and even, you know, the spirit. But, you know, I think my curiosity really lies within how the body holds on to those stress factors. And then that creates a even greater inequality of like health. And we see a lot of our communities of color experience the very things my family, my parents have like have shown, which is diabetes, high blood pressure, stroke, and so I am excited for, I think there has been a new wave of folks who are advocating for mental health in our communities, and that really does excite me. But I directly see in so many, it's just so layered and so complicated. I don't even know how to like explain it in a concise, direct way. But it is, there is a connection.
Okay. Yeah, like I always tell my students, you know, to find somebody that they could speak with when they're being troubled, if they're feeling a certain way, and have strategies for yourself to release mental anguish and pressure. And I speak with them about that. So yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so Dr. Terry Strong.
Pose your question again.
Question is, how does racism affect the state of mental health as it relates to the behavior of all people?
Well, it depends on when you talk about the mental health part of it, you more or less talking about not so much the systemic, but the systemic has an impact when you are rejected, when you are when you buy into the notion of assimilation, and the powers of assimilation give you negative feedback, such as your hair is not straight enough, your speech is not right, you don't have the right education, you don't use the right fork, you're too loud. You know, when that happens, it can cause emotional problems. But on the other aspect of it, when you think about those Karens who show hatred, that is an emotional illness on their part. They are actually sick emotionally. It's something driving that hate. It is hate that's driving those actions. When you see the person saying, go back to Africa, or all those kinds of things, or go back to Asia, or get out of our country. When you see those things, that is an emotional commitment to ignorance. Because if this country has taught us anything, it is that people have come here to live from every part of the globe. This is not the place to be to try and be, what do you call it? It's actually not a place to be superior, to be quite honest with you. So in the context of racism, it damages not only the one that it targets, but it also damages the one that is doing the targeting as well. It's hurt on both sides.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. And if you allow it to penetrate your spirit, your mind, your spirit, your emotions, your psyche, if you allow the racism to penetrate you to the point where it causes you to be affected negatively, then you have given up every ounce of your power that you have and control of yourself. You have relinquished all power to that, to racism. I refuse to feel inferior. I don't care if 1 million white people tell me how inferior I am because I'm Black. I refuse to accept that. So as it relates to, we are responsible for our own mental health. I recall the gentleman that, and I'm glad you said, when your students are feeling some type of way, you tell them to find someone that they can confide in and talk with. That's good. The people who, the man that created the Alcoholics Anonymous, he said, it was born out of an 8-hour conversation he had with another alcoholic. And they talked and talked and talked and talked themselves out of their habit. They supported each other for 8 hours. And out of that 8-hour long conversation came their deliverance, came their healing. So we are social creatures. It's natural for us to want to be in relationship. And so when you're dealing with racism, the best thing you could be is in relationship with a like-minded individual. Someone that's going to validate you, support you, where this person is tearing you down, then this person over here who you're in relationship with can build you back up, to keep you stable, to keep your mental capacity stable and well.
Okay. Good, good. All right, brother doctor.
I agree everything with Dr. Strong said, word for word. You know, we're get to the point where you kind of responsible for yourself, but I think we're kind of looking at things a little different. And I mean, because there's two parts to mental health. because you got some people, man, who just don't know reality. I worked around, I worked in a company where you had, a psychiatric company. You had the PET team, the psychiatric emergency team. I worked around a bunch of POC, was they were probably outpatient clinic. I worked around a lot of doctors. I had a lot of clients that had mental issues. You have some people who just can't figure it out, who don't know how to be responsible for themselves or not know what to do. So I don't know what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about people who just don't know how to cope, or who just way out there. Because are you talking about people who have
Well,
the cognitive ability to cope, or just facing, like you said, racism, depression, little issues? Because you got people out there, man, that's like Amara said, you got homeless people, man, that's homeless because, man, they just don't know where they're at. So I don't know what group you're focusing on. Talk about
well,
personal feelings.
there's not a central focus. This is just open discussion. It's not central to, it's mental health. It's sort of broad, and we're getting perspectives.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You have two perspectives. You got people out there, man, that's on the streets, it's just not there.
Well, you can look at
And you
mental.
got personal issue. I mean, when you talk
Well, I'm
about,
saying you can look at mental health as in a way that what you can look at it where it could keep you. What I could ask questions about what keeps a person mentally healthy. So it's kind of broad, and whatever you want to bring to the table, you can. That's all we're listening, you
okay.
know, just getting your perspective. So you want to continue, or you want me to move on?
Well, no, it's just like, well, yeah, we come to that point. It's like what Dr. Strong said. You got someone that's in your corner, think like you can help you out. You can face those challenges. But when it comes down to mental, instability, it's like Amaran said, it's a lot of topics, subjects, and like I said, I'm still kind of confused here.
Well, the question was, how does racism affect the state of mental health as it relates to the behavior of people, of all people? So it's basically racism and the effect of it, and how does that affect,
well, it's like, yeah,
behavior?
like Dr. Strong said, hey, I'm at the point where, hey, it doesn't affect me. I mean, you can't let it affect you, and I learned that as I got older, worked around a lot of people who were racist. And you get to the point, man, where I hate to say this, but I look at everybody as racist, no matter what color you are. If I'm looking at somebody, I'm thinking that everybody is racist till you prove something different.
Well,
So that's how I live my life, man. I don't
well,
expect nothing from nobody. I'm always out. I gotta figure this out on my own. That's the way I challenge it. For when it comes like
well,
to
well,
racism, man. I look at everybody as racist, man.
well.
So
If you have a clear definition of racism, then you can work from that point.
you know,
So if you could have a definition of racism that's that you could use for yourself, but I'm talking about a general kind of definition for racism is where it's a system of government, and there, according to Neely Fuller Jr., uh, racism is white supremacy. White supremacy is racism, because they have the power to affect everybody because of being in power, and so they can enforce based off of I'm a white racist. So it's how you kind of view it. So and race is a division process, and it places one race in charge of all other races. If you could see it in that light, but it's how you understand it. So I'm gonna move to Professor Armin Ra to let him touch on it a little bit.
Well, it's you can't argue that racism doesn't affect people mentally. There's been too many studies with Dr. Clark and his wife back in right after the Watch Rebellion in the Kerner's report. I think it was in the Kerner's report. They had children, and they put black children, and they put a white doll next to a black doll, and asked them which one they think is the prettiest and which one they want to be like, and they chose the white doll. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing wrote in an article, Black Books Bulletin, back in the 70s, the psychological effects of the image of a white God or white Jesus and its effect on Black children. Racism is a pandemic, and you can't use the language of the sick to cure the sick. If your system is based on racism, then that is a sick system. And that means that you're suffering from a mental disorder. It's like the owner, thinking that they had the right to enslave some people for 100 years. Or a country that say, I can drop 3 atomic bombs on a heavily populated country and watch them suffer for years and years and pray and think that they're normal. That a person could come and say to the Native American, God told me to take this land from you and kill you. But God never talked to the Native American. And then we think that these people are normal. You know, there's a lot of people that with mental illness that exemplify intelligence, but they're psychopathically killing and destroying their wives, their children. And these are people with college degrees and people that go to church and do some strange things. You know, sometimes when the person with the most mental illness, they tell the person that is not mentally ill that you sick. Like when we was in college, there's so much weed, people smoking so much weed. If you didn't smoke weed, they thought you was abnormal because you chose not to do it. Dr. Strong is a strong woman. In spite of obstacles, she kept her mental perspective and she understood the system. She taught her son to get around the system of oppression and she prepared them. So therapy begins at home. Preparing your kids.
Say that again.
Yeah, therapy begins at home. And you know, you as a parent have to raise your kids, first of all, to be against drugs, against alcohol, because of the addiction to it and the psychological effects it have on you. By what? You're not doing it, you know? And you have to discipline yourself. You can't tell your kids you shouldn't get high and couldn't drink, and they see you with a weed box up under the bed, and or see you with a a cabinet full of I.W. Harper or Jim Beam, and you know you have to live that life of a therapeutic example. And there's so many books like Dr. Amos Wilson. You know, he's a psychologist, and may the good he left in the world last forever. He passed, but he wrote a book on the Black psychology, the psychological development of the Black child. And he talked about the uniqueness of people with different cultures. And each person has their own unique being. And that some kids are exposed to the outer culture while they're in the womb of the mother before they're born. That's how crack babies are born. That's how alcohol babies are born, because they're exposed to the culture. They're even exposed to the temperament of the society by the anxiety, the frustrations that the mother's having while she's pregnant. You know, some mothers, they talk to their baby. They are already communicating before that baby is born,
That's right.
but they prepare for the baby. When you're not prepared and you bring a baby into the world and you are exposing them even before they even get here to what's out there that they shouldn't be doing. That's a rough life for a kid to come into. You know, and you're a sister having baby by a wild dog, sea dog, D dog, and B dog with tattoos on, earrings on, because you like him, but he has no idea what a father is. You know, and y'all, you know, I mean, all of that affects the children. Instability, moving all the time. Children, families need to be stable, sedentary. And that causes a lot of it. But a lot of that is caused by racism. The distribution of life-giving goods and services and administration of justice based upon race. And that's a bad thing. Dr. Hakeem Mahabuti Institute of Positive Education does an in-depth job about some of the anxieties that children grow up hungry, grow up unsupervised, grow up unnurtured. And Dr. Strong knows the power of love and the power of faith, because you can pray your way out of this situation if you have a strong faith.
That's right.
I've seen the Nation of Islam take people out of prison and out of mental health, and with narcotic programs. Malcolm X started that. And they got them off drugs, put them in bow ties and suits, and they became strong fathers.
Sure did.
So there are some cure to some issues, but the point is that you have to accept the challenges. As Amos said, you can't tell a kid who grows up oppressed and deprived in the projects, you know, that his life is the same as a kid growing up in Beverly Hills or in an affluent area with going to private schools, and his life is all planned. But then at the same time, that kid could have more mental problems than the kid that grew up in the project.
That's right.
You know, if you ever worked in juvenile hall, you see that a lot of the kids come there are middle class, from working class families. You say, well, why did you steal? I just wanted to do it because I didn't want my mom and dad to buy it for me. I wanted to do it on my own. Well, why did you shoot the man? Well, he wouldn't give me the money. You know, I mean, you got some issues out there. So the only thing I'm saying is that, you know, racism is the world's first pandemic, because it's global. You see what's happening to the Palestinians right now?
That's right.
That traumatizing kids bombing people, talking about where they sending rockets that you intercepting. We set off rockets on 4th of July. A rocket ain't nothing. You understand? I mean, it's not compared to the bombs and the precision of knocking whole buildings down with children in them and killing 50 children. And then America, that's supposed to be sane, ain't saying nothing and want to sell them more weapons. And then you say, well, they know that's a good country. People come here for opportunity because it's capitalistic and it was built upon integration. That's right, but it's exploitation in many ways.
That's what it was built on.
Black people didn't come here voluntarily. Many Asians, Arabs, Chinese, Latinos, they come here seeking opportunity. We came here and was enslaved. That's a different from wanting to come here and then being forced here. I mean, they're being kidnapped and brought here. And people act like they didn't do that. You see what I mean? And then, you know, the raping, the vicious murdering and displacement, burning down Black Wall Street, burning down homes, and then, I mean, it's a traumatizing situation. You can't say racism is not an issue that when they got driving while black. What is that? Paranoia anytime the police get behind you? Is that a mental illness? You know, I mean, look at the devaluation of Black lives when it comes down to what happened to Floyd, what happened to Garner, what happened, I can go all the way back to Larry Morris, who was choked out in his own bathroom by the police, way before Larry Floyd. I can go back to when a woman threw the knife and the police shot her. And the knife hit the ground and they still shot her. So don't say racism don't have an effect on Black people right now who are paranoid when they leave their house, and parents who are paranoid for their children when they leave their house, because there's so many things out there, not just the police, not just the Ku Klux Klan, but other African-American groups or Asian groups or Latino gangs that's shooting each other. So many kids are coming up, they've been locked down way before the pandemic. You know, my parents don't let them go out the house. You know, so there's a lot of fear. That's the only thing I'm saying. So mental health has to be clearly defined of what is the standard to show that this person is mentally healthy.
So,
you know, because you act like white.
For you.
Yeah.
Rob. If I want to commend something you said you can't heal oppression with the tools of oppression. I think that's what you said.
Yeah.
But my question is, if we have an understanding that our participation in the system is to keep us controlled, the constant attempts to penetrate the systemic racist system, isn't it kind of crazy for us to continue to try and do that rather than say, okay, integration worked far less for us than segregation. Segregation worked really well for us. It had its challenges, but it worked better than integration. Integration has proven to be detrimental to us, puts us in fear of coming out of the house, of being stopped by this police. Memphis is 65% African-American. Most people are not afraid to be stopped by the police because the police look like us. Most of the police are Black. So why wouldn't we rethink what we do in this country? Why wouldn't we be our own support system? Be our own, resurrect our villages, those kind of, why wouldn't we put our energy into something healthy rather than continue to allow ourselves to be abused by the system?
Well, the system abuses itself. White folks sell their own people cigarettes to kill them, you know, and sell them alcohol. So the system is about exploitation, and everybody in it, they don't see themselves as being exploited. They see it as freedom of choice. But getting back to the whole concept of integration, yeah, certain aspects of segregation was beautiful. And then, but you've got to remember COINTELPRO. They broke up Black communities like they broke up Black families.
Why did we allow that?
Because we defenseless. The same reason why we couldn't stop them from, the same reason the Native American couldn't stop them from taking this land. The same reason the Palestinians can't stop the Jews. When you're dealing with a psychopathic, psychiatric, violent individual, that's loose, and there's no constraint on what they'll do. I mean,
So are we saying that they are in fact superior to us? Their
no,
weapons are
that's
superior?
not superiority.
What
That's
is?
evility. Most people just want to live on the earth and just want to get along with everybody.
Right.
They teach what happened in '92 with Latasha Harlan. Many African Americans blame Koreans for the act of one Korean woman. Why? Because it gave them an opportunity to exploit the rebellion and in some instances and take out the hate that they receive on others. That's, that happens psychologically, but integration did help Black people, in many ways. And it destroyed the Negro Baseball League, it destroyed our defense mechanisms, like you said, with regards to us being able to live amongst ourselves and live the type of lifestyle in an all Black community or all Asian. But you still have that among certain ethnic groups. You have a Chinatown, you have a Japan, little Tokyo, you have little Vietnamese, you have little Mexico and Alberta, and you do.
But you don't have no little Black nothing.
Well, but there's a reason, and that reason is that the COINTEL, counterintelligence, said that after 1965, that they didn't want to have Black communities because that Black community exploded. You see, LA 92 was different. LA 92 was not an all Black thing. There was everybody involved in LA 92, all over, Hollywood, everywhere, different ethnic groups, Latino groups. Many Koreans in Korean gangs destroyed Korean buildings in downtown on Wilshire. The Black people who live over there was Korean gangs that did a lot of stuff to their own culture. Intergroup conflict among racial groups have always existed. That's why some Japanese don't like Chinese. Some Chinese don't like Vietnamese. I mean, all of that, you're gonna have that. And they can solve it within themselves. But there are other groups that like that division and they contributed to it. But getting back to integration, you wouldn't be able to go to hotels if it wasn't for desegregation. You wouldn't be able to go to a lot of schools, colleges.
Yes, you would. You had your own. You had your own hotels. You had your own schools.
But let me just say this.
Yes, you did.
You can have your own, and we've had our own when it was segregation. And a Black man with a college degree could not do good as a white man that dropped out of school. So you have to remember those statistics. I'm agreeing with you. I live in the Black communities. I could have committed class suicide and moved out. I had the salary, I had the status as a professor and all that. I chose to stay in my community. I choose to stay here. All my brothers and sisters that moved out to Riverside, Moreno Valley, I don't know where they are. I don't never even go out there. They had to come down here. You understand? I ain't getting on no freeway for no hour and a half. You understand? But anyway, but there is some good aspects to integration, and there's some negative to it that you have pointed out. That's all.
Okay, let me jump in here because I want to get. We have two more questions, and I want to get our guest, Ms. JW. We had spoke earlier, and she said that she wanted to do an hour, and I told her we could. We normally do more than an hour, so I want to at least be able to get her to respond to the next two questions, and then we'll go around the panel. because I don't know if she wants to leave or not. But I think we have a nice group here where we could continue if she does have to leave. So let me just get these two questions to her, and then we'll go around the panel and talk about it also. Okay, Ms. JW, in urban areas in the United States, how is the mentality of our youth as it relates to mental health and education?
Yeah, that's another really great question. And also thank you everyone I've been taking notes. There's so many layers to this all that I'm learning about both Asian American history and Korean American history, as well as African American history. And there's so many connections, and I just want to like recognize that. But to your question, yeah, just working in, I have worked for the past 7 years in education. The 6 years in urban ed and 1 year at a project-based learning school in a more maybe like middle class, upper middle class neighborhood. And it's, I think it was Aman Ra who had shared that about the juvie stories and how mental health doesn't discriminate based on race. And yeah, even in both school settings, actually in the more upper middle class, mental health, I saw more issues on mental health where students were very depressed and doing heavy drugs. I remember just crazy, very crazy stories of drug abuse and addiction on like all sorts of drugs, but particularly like psychedelic drugs, and then just opening up their minds to this alternative world that where they just end up losing their sense of reality. And and suicide was really high at that school. It was pretty notorious actually. There was problems where the admin was concerned about suicide trends happening among the young kids. And for me, it was a really dark place to work at because of the heaviness that a lot of students felt. And the students were fully aware of the culture of like drugs, depression, suicide. So that was, my experience in a more like upper middle class neighborhood. Teaching in both LAUSD and CUSD. I feel like the kids are, I don't know if it's the day and age of generation and social media. The kids, I mean, it's either or, but a lot of students that I talk with are very aware of mental health, and they do their research online through social media, and they may not know how to manage stress levels, but they know how to identify when they're stressed out, and they know how to identify when they're in a certain mood. I just feel like they don't have the strategies to really work through what's causing them anxiety or stress, or they don't have the space to do that. But I've meditated with my students, and we do, last year when we were in person, we did meditations on Monday, and at first it was like 5 minutes, and then it would go to 10 minutes. And then just being a teacher, like not as consistent as I should be. Some days I would fall off and not do it, or some weeks, and they would immediately like recognize it. And
Mhm.
it would be it would be any student. It would be the student who I the student who is top of the class to the student who is barely getting by would ask for it. And sometimes a student would have like a really crazy chaotic day either at school, and they would just specifically be like, hey miss, like, can we meditate today? Like, I need meditate today. And I don't know what prompted them to say that, but I realized like our students are really smart. They know what's going on around them clearly, and but they may not know exactly what's going on within them, but they know when they aren't feeling right. And most often they'll vocalize it. Either they'll say it out loud or they will do something so people know that they're stressed out. And then through a trusted relationship, they are well receiving of um they're well receiving of things that actually help them and work. And so pretty that has been actually recent and a real transformative aspect of teaching that happened literally last year. So
Okay. So now, did you want me to give you the last question and then,
no, we can go through and then I'll go through the next question.
okay, so you can stay around?
Yeah.
Okay, we have three more people that just joined in. So I'm gonna go to Brother California. Brother California, uh, would you like to touch on that question?
No, not at all. Thank you.
Okay, and then let's go to Sister Making It Happen has joined in. Sister Making It Happen, would you like to touch on that question?
Good evening, everyone. Greetings, everyone.
Good evening.
Greetings.
Greetings to our speaker. And so
You
didn't
want me to
quite hear the
repeat it?
question. Yes, I just mostly heard some of the responses. Could you repeat the question?
Okay, it says in urban areas in the United States, how is the mentality of our youth as it relates to mental health in education?
Well, I definitely agree with a lot of what JW pointed out. I agree that the students that I service are very aware. They may not know how to put their feelings into words and how to identify exactly where the pain is, but they are aware that they're in a painful situation or things are painful. Some do have the trusting relationships, and so they are able to access the resources. And I do agree that they may be in situations at home where the awareness is not there. So again, they may be aware, but their parents may not be aware or willing to engage because of their own issues with attempting to engage systems and going through institutional racism and all the other factors that kind of keep people from feeling welcome. So we have a lot of work to do. And I'm really proud to know JW's impact to the campus and bringing the yoga and the mindfulness to the classes that, she interfaces with. So that's my contribution.
Okay, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Okay, now Dr. Andre Strong has joined. So Dr. Andre Strong, do you want to respond to that?
I agree. You know, the
well, in grade school, I really wouldn't know because I've never worked with grade schools, to be honest with you. I get them when they leave grade school. But I can say some of it carries over with them because, I deal with a lot of freshmen, a lot of college freshmen, their first semester of college. And so, yeah, a lot of them, they know something is wrong. They don't know how to express it. They are aware that something is there. They don't know how to deal with it. In my opinion, I think it may be a level of maturity that could be one determining factor.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really the um, maturity. I think will play a significant role in that area. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion.
Okay. Well, that's good. Now, a few things here. I know that when I'm dealing with students, I talk to them about having strategies, and they, and I know listening to Miss JW, she has a few things that she does with them. They need a variety of guidance that's not being given. So it's like a compensation thing. You got to compensate for what's missing. I know that I was approaching administration and applying for jobs. And one of the things that I've noticed on the campuses that I've worked on is that we have kids that are in mental health crisis, and there's a lack of administrative interventions that could be provided for them using the staff that we have on campus. And that was one thing I was going to bring to the campus, but of course they didn't hire me, which was fine because I have to do what I have to do regardless of what position I'm in. So I know that we people that's in the position to help can provide some type of guidance for the students. So that's something I wanted to add. Okay, so let's go back to Dr. Terry Strong.
Uh, repeat your question again.
Basically, how does the youth in education, how are they mentally, what is the state of them when it comes to mental health in education? And I know you've dealt with kids too, so
Yeah, it has been my observation that there's actually, like JW said, there's more mental health issues at the upper class than the lower class. Lower class, there's really not, there's some, but the competition among them, there's more camaraderie than there is competition because they feel like ain't none of us got nothing. So we need to be on each other's side. But when you get to that middle and upper class, then there's a lot of competition that goes on in that particular group. And if you look at it from a spiritual perspective, my generation, I'm at the end of the baby boomers, and some of the next generation, we grew up in church. We grew up with a spiritual foundation. Even if you didn't stay, you got that foundation. The foundation was laid in your life. And you're dealing with a generation who don't have a spiritual foundation. You ever seen a house built with no foundation? That's kind of the spiritual place where they are. And it doesn't, it can be Christianity, it can be Nation of Islam, it can be Buddhism. They all offer a foundation. Mine's is Christian. My children's foundation is Christian. If a child just grows up like a weed and has no foundation whatsoever, you're going to see some mental health issues, because you're going to see that confusion in them. I know something is going on with me, but I just can't put my finger on it. You see what I'm saying? And that's where they are spiritually. If we could understand that we are spiritual beings having a natural experience, we could understand that the importance of that foundation, the importance of that stability, the foundation, the village, the camaraderie, all of those things support the well-being of the villagers, adults and children alike. And so that's my take on it.
Okay, good. Okay, brother doctor.
Oh yeah, I agree with everything Dr. Strong just said. I was just looking at this here. Religion gives people something to believe in, provides a sense of structure, and typical offer a group of people to connect with other similar beliefs. And it's just, you guys are teachers, man. You guys are in the field. You're on the lines. You're on the front line, man, with these kids every day. And I'm pretty sure you guys probably see the kids more than the parents see the kids, man. You guys are there. You're seeing the issues. And what kind of hurt me, Rasa Key, you know the problem. You saw the problem. You came with a solution, but you shut down when you didn't get the job. You shouldn't have stopped there, man. You shouldn't have stopped there. You should have been raising hell, man, because you guys are important to kids' mental well-beings. I'm impressed with J Dub. She got a little structured foundation with the meditation. And and like she said, the kids got to realize what's going on around them, man. And I think one thing important in life, man, which helped me is you got to know, the expectations, man. I heard Dr. Ra, Dr. Strong, and Dr. Strong was kind of touching on it a little bit when she was getting into it. She was trying to say, hey, you can't expect to be treated right, man, equally. You're not going to be, judged on your character, your contents, your education. You're going to be changed. You're going to be treated differently. And if you don't know that, that's where the mental issue comes in. See, I was, like I said, taught at an early age, hey, man, you're not going to be treated fairly. I was told by a teacher, hey, your skills are not that good, man. You can probably get into a, NSA2 school or lower school for sports. I was told, man, hey, if you want to get better, you need to do this, you need to do that. Your skills are a little low. Someone came to me and told me. Even when I got to the working field, I had, other people come to me, or my people come to me and explain to me, hey, man, this is how this thing works. Don't expect you be treated fairly. And, like I said, we talked to a few interviews before, and I threw this out. All you teachers out there, all you professors, everybody has a job. You think you got that job because you thought you were smart. You were educated. Oh, I got this degree. So no, man, they had to have a black person in that position. That's why you got the job. It's not because of what you knew. It's what they had to have. And when I was explaining that kind of system to me, man, that helped me out with my mental health, man. But go back to the kids. But yeah, man, doing the meditation with the kids. And I think you guys, man, you got a hard job as it is, keeping with your mental health. Now you're looking at kids that got mental health, man, and you guys got to come up with something, man, to help them. I think that's more important to your mental health. You got to help them out, man. And doing that the meditation thing, I think is a great tool. And Rasta Key, you need to go back, man, and raise hell, man, and bring in all those people you need, that can come in and help those kids, man. Don't say no, man. Because I remember how you were when I came down and spoke to one of your classes, man. You care, you tell them what's going on, and don't let getting in that position stop you from helping other kids out, man. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, well, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So, when one door is open, many others open. I mean, closed, many others open. So I have alternative ways of doing things, and you will see, you will see. We have things in the mix as we talking. Okay, so Professor Amin Ra.
Yeah, so I taught public school from elementary all the way up to college, university. I taught at Linwood High School twice. I became a tenured teacher. I taught at Compton Unified. And I created a program called the Saturday Institute, Academic Institute, where we had free tutoring in 1979 to 2004.
Wow.
And it was housed at Whaley. I had college students. I said, you don't do a research paper, you got to put time in the community, and you come and tutor these kids. Many of those tutors went on to become teachers. My point is this: I grew up in Watts. I grew up hard, 12 brothers and sisters. I was the first to graduate from college in my family. I didn't have nobody to show me how to do it. But one thing I learned as a teacher, the majority of the kids come there to learn. It's about 5 or 6%, always sometimes 15% that are your problems.
Mm-hmm.
And they affect everybody else. It makes it difficult for others if you let them get away with their undisciplinary acts, and it becomes infectious. Then you had the gang syndrome in the 80s and the late in the 60s and 70s, and off-campus people coming on campuses and creating chaos and problems, and the truancies, and the necessities for parents to move all the time, and because they get evicted, because they get divorced or separated. There's a lot of things that goes on in children's lives and the student lives. But when I came up at Markham and Ritter Elementary, we used to want to go to school because we were told that was a very important institution, and that it was first of all, it was a law. First, your parents wanted you to go because most of them didn't have an education. Out of the South, during the 40s, early 50s. And so you went, but they had activities in the morning. There was sports, kickball, softball games, and you go and you just watch the sixth graders hit the ball over the fence and stuff like that at 99th Street. And then at Centennial, they used to have snacks in the morning, glazed donuts and milk, and people couldn't wait to get there to get them and fight the seagulls who would boo-boo on you before they built them sheds. That's why they had them sheds over there, Roski, because Rasashi, because the seagulls used to come when we buy our donuts and eat our lunches and boo-boo on us, and then we had to leave our food, and then they'd come down and get it. So that's why they built them shades in the lunch area. But let me just tell you this, most kids really want to learn.
They
But
do.
what happened, you have those issues. Then they changed schools. We went to school because we had wood shop. We had a project that we wanted to finish. We had agriculture. We wanted to see our tomatoes or potatoes grow. We had a metal shop. We had electrical shop. We had student organizations, photography club, this club, that club, this club. It was modeled after European schools, but we had those activities that was beyond just going to study to take a test so that the school could get money.
Yeah,
So they changed the schools from those activities, preschool activities, after school activities where you shot carom, played ping pong, and things of this nature till your parents pick you up. They got rid of all of that.
Sure
And
did.
now it's just about tests. Test, test, test. And so this becomes a situation. Then you got people teachers that don't like teaching. They say, hey, look, y'all do what you want to do. Just be quiet. I'll give you a seat. You understand? And there's no learning going on. There's a lot of issues that create problems in urban schools. You got politics, school boards that got relatives and friends and political supporters or congressmen and assemblymen telling you, I got somebody I want to recommend for a job. Principalships or political positions. Mm-hmm. You think, especially if you don't have no experience and didn't work your way up. Most people don't know how to get the community involved in their schools. The teachers beat the kids out the gate when school is closed.
Yes, they do.
You understand? I mean, it's a lot of issues going on that you got to look at. But when it comes down, but there's still many kids, despite all that, we have valedictorians. Of course, when I came out of Centennial, we had a graduating class of 700 students. Now, you're lucky if you got 70 graduating. But that's how we had 700 seniors that graduated from Centennial in the heart of the African-American community, a school that was built for just Black people. Many of us went on to be lawyers, just that. My point to you is this. When you at home, and Dr. Strong would say this, yeah, she went to church, she's a minister, but she took it home too. And she created a spiritual home.
Absolutely.
And her home was ran like the church. It was a sacred place of expectation. There was no cussing, there was no disrespecting. There was no questioning. You just do what I know is right, you're gonna do it. And that's a whole new different ball game. And you can't measure her strength and her vision for the future and her plan and her foundation with this new generation of teenage pregnancies.
No foundation.
And children when 40 to 70% of your school is in foster homes and placement homes.
My Lord.
That's a whole, where we came up, everybody had their mother and dad.
Sure did.
And so there was the element of discipline. The only thing I'm trying to say is that times have changed and attitudes. You can make kids wash dishes. You can make kids wash dishes, but you can't make them like washing the dishes. That's up to them to learn to do that. I'm washing dishes because I'm helping my mama so that she don't have to do it. And I love my mama. Versus, you better get in there and wash them dishes. And if you don't do it right, you won't have to wash them all over again. If I hold that glass up and there's film in it, if I look at these forks and spoons and they ain't clean right, you're going to wash them all over. That's a whole new different thing. If not, I'm going to tear that butt up. That's a whole new different game versus teaching her son to love her so much that he wanted to achieve not just for himself, but to let mama know I got the message and you can trust me.
Mhm.
You can trust, we're a team. Most families don't have family meetings and discussions. It's a whole different game out there. My father was brutal. He whipped you, he hit you, didn't tell you why. I said, well, why didn't you just tell me what you wanted me to do, man? I mean, but that's where he was raised. He had a third grade education. That's where he got whipped. So he whipped. I raised 6 children and didn't have to put a finger on them. I talked to them, I encouraged them, but above all, I was a strict disciplinarian. And an expectation, you going to college, and gave them the vision, took them up to colleges, took them to places, took them on trips, took them to this, kept telling them the importance of education every time. You got to, took them downtown on a trip to see the homeless and see the people on the streets. I said, I took them through the projects where I grew up in and told them, say, you don't want to live here, buddy, and be grateful for what you have. You look at your house compared to what these kids are living in. So you better, and if you want to live in a good place and for your children, you get you an education. I didn't say you got to be 10 times smarter than white folks. I didn't say you had to do all that. I just say if you want to be able to provide a whole life for your children, if you're going to bring some in the world, get yourself together. My point is that mental health is, anybody can have a mental problem. It's the ones that don't think they have a mental problem, just the problem. The one that got it and getting therapy and getting treatment. But there's a whole lot of people walking around here and getting no help. And they self-medicating. And that's even inducing the mental illness even worse. You understand? You're already tripping. Now you're going to smoke, you really tripping. And now, then on top of that, they got some drugs out there now that, and they got kids drinking 40 ounces, drinking wine. And I mean, they make it so cheap.
My Lord.
You had wine coolers like it was soda pop. And then all this type of stuff that's out there. Kids get confused if they don't have a stability at home to keep them in a conscious way of discipline. And once they get 18, move out, they may go back and do some things that they thought, well, my mama didn't allow me to do. You may have some flip-flop, but for the most part, if you treat as Dr. Strong said, if you build a strong foundation and the roots of that tree go deep, then many times those children are going to stay with what they mama them and daddy them taught them. That's all.
Okay. So now we have one more question. And I guess we've been hitting on it the whole time. Somebody want to say something?
No, I
Okay.
was just getting some water.
Okay. So now, this is the last question, Ms. J. Dub.
Here's a cup.
So it says, what is the state of our mental health in the United States? So you're measuring. What is the state? What do you think it is? If it's good, why? If it's not, how can we improve it? And when I think we've been touching on it the whole time, but you could kind of, sum it up. Ms. JW?
Yeah, I feel like our mental health that's a hard question,
Yeah.
but
But you can
I don't
kind
know
of,
if it,
from your perspective,
oh man,
how is it here in the
some
United
days,
States?
some days I think we're doing worse. Some days I think we're doing better, because I think we're getting exposed to more. And for me, like, I don't know, but what I do know is Um, I can speak from just with how social media and the internet is increasing. That's why I don't know, because I'm also very confused about how our mental health is doing, because I'm a millennial who's like in social media and I see a lot of people doing better, but then the next day they they actually share they're doing worse. And I see a lot of more people being aware of mental health, but even though we're all aware, I see we're all and COVID, of course, but and you know, are just like we just know too much now, and now I don't know if we're good or not. And so I can't answer that question of are we doing better, are we doing worse? But what I do recognize is there is a broader awareness of the situations that are happening around the world as well as in America. And there's also an awareness that we need to take care of ourselves. And I think there's been a lot of conversation around like radical self-care and how, people who are fighting against systemic racism and oppression like need to also radically take care of ourselves, both mind, body, and spirit. And I take these dialogues as improvement, like, okay, we're talking about things now, so that's good. But my concern is that a lot of this talk is happening online. And, you know, and just going back, like, of the foundation and the family and, family talking. Like, I know in my family, my dad was a minister, he's a retired minister. And we would have like family worship where we would just sit and we would just share about either Bible verses that spoke to us or revelations that were happening, but it was all through conversation. And a lot of because there's a social media and there's new avenues of dialogue, and we are talking about mental health in social media, either through Instagram, Twitter, Clubhouse, um, what is that one called? TikTok. There's so many new ways to talk to people. I almost feel like those are becoming distractions actually. And I don't want to be like, I don't want to be pessimistic. I like to consider myself an optimist, but I lean more towards that we are in a dangerous place because we could now be living in a delusion that we're doing better because we're talking about it and because we're aware and because we're researching, but we're actually, a lot of us are feeling much more isolated. And, just my last comment is I've been checking in with my students on a weekly basis, and I do this thing called ruler, where you recognize your emotion, understand your emotion, label your emotion, express your emotion, and then I forget the last part. I think it's realize your emotion, um, or regulate your emotion. And I've just been checking in with them, and they're able, again, just goes back, they're able to recognize their emotion because they're reading a lot. They're on social media. People on TikTok are all talking about mental health nowadays, especially with identity and racism and just sexuality. Like, all these factors are up for conversation, and our young people want to talk. They want to understand. But because there's no deep outlet of just speaking and being heard, and they're investing in these shallow outlets, it's it's I just hope that I hope that we don't all fall, we don't all like really drink the Kool-Aid and think that these ways of expression can replace like deep rooted conversation, meditation, and the inner work that we have to do to be well. And so I don't think we're doing, I don't know if it's because I'm not doing in a really great place with social media and I'm cutting off, but I don't think we're in a really great place if we're not having those deep outlets.
Okay, so would a solution be to limit some of the social media interaction?
Yeah, and to have more real world interaction, nature, people talking, like our realities are getting too, it's going to be inevitable that our realities are intertwined with the internet because and the virtual world, because it's just, we're here now, but that can't be the only reality. And so yeah, our kids should be going out, they should be talking with people, they should have, we should, or not just our people, our kids, but like us, like our attention span should be not on, you know, like one scroll, you go through 50 news events, 50 personal events, and you go through 50 different emotions, and it's too fast. But I don't know if I'm old now and I'm like I don't know if I'm being like,
Well,
oh, these
listen,
kids nowadays, but
I
I
tell
don't
you
know.
what, I'm not old. That's so if you thinking you old, well, keep thinking that I'm not. I'm a young man.
Thank you. I tell them you can get old by yourself.
Okay, let's go. Let's go to Brother Doctor.
Okay, hey, J Dub, good answer.
Hi.
Because that's what I've been saying ever since Roski started this show. And let me explain this to all these people with these PhDs. Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. If you didn't solve it yesterday, it's not going to change. You know, it's just like this virus. The longer and longer we sit here and talk, it's going to mutate. Our issues are going to mutate and get worse and worse. It's not going to change. Like you said with the TikTok, you know, we went from what, MySpace to TikTok? Well, what do you think is going to be here next year? Why, you know, the solution you come up with tomorrow is going to be something worse the day after that. You know, JW, you got it right. Yeah, it's not going to change, man. We can sit here and hope, expectations. You know, Dr. Strong said it best, and Amaraj said it, you know, the church, the family, our people, we're not going to get out as a group. We're not going to get together. We're not going to ever see something whole as a group that unite. Now, we unite on, like you said, George Floyd, the whole world united. Hey, fine. Where are those people at now? We're march for a few days, a few months. But, you know, like Amaraj said, hey, when white supremacists come in, hey, they're just going to wait till we forget about it. Throw out some crumbs and people forget about it. But you know, as a whole, as a nation, man, this is what's new. Did you guys expect something different? Do you expect something different tomorrow? Do you expect something different from next year? There's no solution, man. You know, like Bob said, the only solution is total destruction. That's the only solution, is total destruction. Start out over. And
Well,
now I'm looking at 60 Minutes last night. Now we on the alien stuff. You know, we got aliens coming. They now they're admitting that they got stuff flying in the world that nobody knows about. What is this stuff? And you know, man, we're you know, hey, take care of you and your own, you and your family. Live happy as you can. Live the best you can every day. And like I was telling Amaraj, if you got something to do tomorrow, life wants you here. If you got stuff to do, man, somewhere to go, life was meant for you to go, be here that next day, man. So just enjoy life, man. Just enjoy life. Because you're not going to beat these people, man. You're not going to beat this government. You're not. I mean, if it's that bad, why leave? Amarad said he wants to stay there. That's fine, but hey, don't complain. If you want to stay in the devil's playground, don't complain about what the devil's feeding you. Leave. But if you don't want to leave, hey, at least be happy. That's all I got to say, man.
All right, brother doctor. Dr. Terry Strong.
Repeat that question again for me.
Basically, what is the state of our mental health in the United States? Is it good? If so, why? If it's not, how can we improve it?
It depends on the lens that you see the United States through. If you see it through the lens of the news, then you on the brink of destruction. Yeah, you don't see any good news. Yeah, bad news sells real good, and so that's all you're going to see through the lens of the news. But if you think about percentages, if you just look at your own family, for instance, you might have, let's say you got 5 sisters and they got 10 children, and out of that 15 people, maybe 1 or 2 are going to be messed up in the head, and the rest of them will be pretty much okay. And that's the average of every family. So if you look at it through that lens, then we're doing pretty good. And in the United States, they would, the news would have you in so much fear. The news will have you thinking that it's doomsday, that there's no hope, like Brother Doctor said, that just scrap this. Jesus come back with the fire and just destroy it all, But I'm one of those people, I like to see the glass not just half full, but overflowing. When I look at it like that, I see so much potential in what we could be as a nation. If we would stop looking at people as colors and look at them as humans, then we'd be a whole lot better off. When I look at the church has been marginalized, but this pandemic could be the wake-up call for the church to say, hold up, wait, let's pump these brakes. Let's get back to creating what we know we should be creating, which is community. Let's get back to those kinds of things. We got the greatest potential if we would just use it wisely. I wouldn't trade growing up at Ward Chapel AME Church for nothing in the world, because that gave me the greatest foundation for a life you could ever have. When I look at the lives of certain people working in the jail for 25 years, I felt so privileged to have been given a foundation, to have been reared with 2 parents, to have been reared with love and discipline. If we say that there's no hope, then we're supposed to be the hope for the community. Then we're not doing our job. We are not doing our job. Jesus never told people to come into the church. He told us to go out and get them. Go out and make disciples, and evangelize and make disciples. So if whatever the shape the world is in, it's a reflection on its citizens. I dare not say that I just refuse to believe that we are hopeless. I refuse to believe that. there are so many more everyday good people than there are these bad seeds. If you look in your own family, you'll see what's reflected. You'll see more positive than you see negative. I guarantee you, every family on this line has more positive in it than negative. And so that's my hope for the United States.
Well, let me add something to what you said. Now, we are in a racial context, and you have this crafty entity that's kind of running game on everybody.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things that you mentioned was propaganda. You have to keep people misinformed in order
Yes,
to contribute to a dire situation.
exactly.
You know, so this is why I have to be a person that thinks for myself, because I
Yes.
know just by doing mathematics, and Dr. Andre Strong can identify with mathematics very well. You know that if it's not adding up, something's wrong.
Absolutely.
You know, and so just being mathematically, I have to draw conclusions. And one of my conclusions is we are under heavy mind control
Yes,
and propaganda in order to
exactly.
keep us in this state as a unit.
Yes,
So when you able to see beyond that and say, wait a minute, hold up,
yes.
this can't be. This is they are fooling us, and they have been.
For the longest time.
So that's all I have to say. Let me go to Brother
No, but
California.
Sigma, that's one of the problems, though, man. You're looking at it through your eyes, your expectations, yeah. But
Well, no,
you got to think
it's
about
not
the
an
other side.
expectation.
But look at the other side. How they looking at it? They want to win.
Well, no, I
So
know. So they got to have
who's right?
no. They got to have strategic tools to
Right,
keep
right,
things in their
right.
favor. But once you get enough people that say, hold up,
Time
this
out.
ain't so.
Well, yeah, it's like that, like
But
Dr.
let
Strong.
me let me let
Right.
me go, brother. Let me go to
Okay.
Brother California. Let me go to Brother California. Brother California, you want to chime in on this?
No, not at all.
Okay. So let's go to Andre, Dr. Andre.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Strong. I think the mental health of the country, for the most part, is doing fairly well, fairly okay. Because if you look at the average family, for the most part, there is more positive people in the family. You know, the percentage of uh, the black sheep or just the knuckleheads is a real small percentage. And like Professor Amara said, the majority of the people that go to school, they want to learn. You know, you'll have a small percentage of students in the classroom that just want to be class clowns and knuckleheads. And so uh, the people that get up and go to work every day, for the most part, their intentions are to, provide for themselves a decent life. You know, you may have, like, think about all of the people who work at McDonald's. It may be like 5% who want to steal from the register, but for the most part, everybody just wants to cook, uh, take orders. They have good, genuine intentions. So that's my opinion. I also kind of want to piggyback on what you said about this controlled environment. I I have this saying. I heard a poem back in 2009 when I was in Chattanooga, and I can't remember the poem for verbatim, but I kind of developed my own. I can't think of the word I wanted. I developed my own
Version of it.
version. It's not even a version. It's just
What you got out of it?
right. So pretty much our people, we are like eagles. We are eagles, but we are eagles stuck in chicken coops, you know. And so you have these chickens telling you that, hey, you're a chicken. And so, some eagles are like, well, hey, I'm a bird, so I must be a chicken, even though my wings don't look like your wings, I must be a chicken because you told me I'm a chicken and I'm a bird. All birds are the same. All birds matter, you know. So you have some eagles that'll flap their wing one time and fly out of the coop, and so this eagle is way up in the air, flying real high. And so you have the chickens, they're just giving the eagles just enough to keep them satisfied, and they're telling the eagles, hey, you don't want to come out of this coop because this may happen to you, that may happen to you, you may not eat, you may not sleep, you may not, you may miss something. So the eagle is in fear of leaving. I'm sorry, the eagle is in fear of leaving the coop, and what may happen. So some eagles, they just, they flap their wings and they fly out of the coop. And so they're looking down at the eagles inside of the chicken coop and they're saying, hey, man, you're not a chicken. You're an eagle, come up here with me. And, whatever the chickens have been spoon feeding the eagles, that eagle can go out and get its own, this eagle can acquire more than what they've just been spoon feeding us. And so the eagles in the coop are saying, hey man, you don't want to stay out there too long. You may fall out of the sky, you may do this, you may do that. You should come back in the coop. And so the eagle is like, no, I'm not going back down there, to you. I'm trying to bring you up here to me. And so it seems that's the struggle we're having within each other. But that's what you made me think of when you said something about the controlled environment.
Okay, well, that's a good analogy. That's excellent. Yeah, so we're gonna go to Professor Amon Ra to conclude.
Yeah, change is inevitable. We used to be babies, but look at us now. To say that there ain't no change. The creator of this universe was a change. There's a lot of people that don't have faith and don't go to church. That don't mean church don't work for some people. If you haven't had a revelation where you prayed for something and it happened, or if you hadn't had close calls with death, and then you feel that something beyond a doctor with the impossibilities of doctors and medicine set the stage for the coming of the creator or God. Some people heal themselves with faith. Some people heal themselves with change. There are people who are dope addicts, alcoholics, they changed. And as Dr. Strong says, in the eyes of the beholder. People make you think ain't nothing changed. If nothing changed, we still be in chains.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of change. Well, Dr. King movement started in the church.
That's right.
He felt a car. He didn't have to do what he did. He had a car. He didn't have to ride no bus. He was middle class. His daddy was a minister. He didn't have to do what he fight for the poor people. but he felt a calling. And he made a sacrifice for change. Black Lives Matter is a movement, it's a slogan. But when the people saw that technology that people, I have questions about it too, but social media spread it around the world. And there was demonstrations over Floyd's death around the world. Before, when Rodney King was beaten, they had video, but they didn't have social media. And they arrested the white boy who took the video, Mr. Holliday. I want you to understand that a lot of change has come for those that remember things differently. We used to have a phone called a black phone with a 25-foot cord with a rotary. Now
right.
people are walking around with phones in their pockets. That's a change. It's the abuse of the mass media and technology. Just like because you go to a dysfunctional church don't mean religion is bad.
That's right.
That's why they say I'm looking for another church home. There's some people that pray that pray their way out of situations. And they believe in a God, a mighty God that answers their prayer.
That's right.
Who are anybody to say that that's wrong? And as you said, they're talking about their extraterrestrial. What do you think we are to them? Extraterrestrial. Ain't nothing up under the earth. We in space. We already in space, talking about they going to space. You can't let the oppressor be your teacher.
You got that right.
He have you thinking you ain't going nowhere because you're creating a change from him being the oppressor and oppressing you. You have to struggle. Frederick Douglass said it, without struggle, there's no progress. Never have been and never will without demand. And I thank everyone who have stood up, from Malcolm X's birthday that's coming up on May 19th, to Martin Luther King's birthday on January 15th, Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks. All of them is the reason you can get on rapid transit today. If it ain't no change, you still have to get out the seat and let the white man sit down. People are fighting for justice. Palestinians don't have nothing but rocks and slingshots against guided missiles, but they have faith in justice and faith in what's right. And, Israel can say that that's their land. Yeah, the old Israel, where Jesus was born, was peace, and everybody was welcome, even strangers. They even told Jesus was a stranger when he walked in there. And he changed that around to a Messiah. There was only 30 Christian people that followed Jesus. Now there's 1 billion. Change is inevitable because it's a part of nature. You can watch a caterpillar turn into a butterfly. That's a change. You understand? So just have hope. You can't take away people's hope. You can't think, I hope I feel better. I hope I get better. You got to get up and do something. But,
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Yeah, prayer without practice is not a prayer. So it's a beautiful thing. But we see change in America. We see change that was fought for and struggled for. It's like the man who said, I'm so heartbroken because I don't have no new shoes. And as our parents taught us, think about the people with no feet, boy, and get your butt up and go do what you got to do. And quit whining. Because there's always somebody doing worse than you. The purpose of death is to make you appreciate life. If there was no death, you wouldn't appreciate it. It comes with life. So in order to have good, you have to have bad, or you would know the difference. And that's where blessings come from. That's right. When you eat, that's why they say they blessings over food. Hey, those people ain't got nothing. So you be blessed. Change is an inevitable thing. Spirituality is a powerful thing. Love is a powerful thing over peace. That's what the Marvin Gaye say. War is not the answer. Only love can bring peace.
And conquer hate.
With what's going on. So you know, like either you be a part of trying to make change, like Roski do, and Miss Dr. Strong with her book that she challenged anybody to read. She said it'll change you.
That's it.
Hey, what JW is doing, and what you saying? Well, don't even worry about the mental illness. Just let them go and jump in the water and jump off buildings. You know, no, she's trying to make a difference. She's trying to help people. It's a beautiful thing what you're doing, JW, and and you keep up the work. Because even if you just help one person, it's a blessing. So that's all. I can go on forever.
Well, we appreciate it. We appreciate everybody in the contribution, and we're able to share this information with people. And our goal is to each one teach one, and it's just gonna, I would say it's gonna grow like a big old snowball rolling down the hill. So yeah, we just gonna keep doing what we're doing, and I definitely hope you guys keep coming back, spreading this good news, pointing out the issues and coming up with solutions. And I just appreciate everybody. JW, thanks for the topic this evening. Thank you for making your contribution. You're on here. This is the second time you came on, and hopefully you'll come on some more and come back when you're not on, hopefully. Now, next week we have our first 12-year-old coming on. And I definitely would love for you guys to come back if you have time. We're going back to Wednesdays because my coaching tenure ends on this Wednesday. So next Wednesday, we have Emiliana. She's a cousin of mine. She's 12 years old. She's a rapper. She's a gymnast and a comedian. A very talented young girl. And so, she's excited to come on here, and it'll be good if you guys come out. That's next Wednesday. A week from this Wednesday, she'll be on here. And we'll be back on Wednesdays again. And then don't forget Professor Amin Ra and historian Joe Hembrick will start on Tuesday, the 25th. And then on the 26th, the 12-year-old will be on. So I appreciate everybody, and I'm going to say each one to each one, and good night.
Good night. Enjoy.
All right.
Good night.